Senator John McCain, before you come to the stage, I just want to jog my memory back to 2 years ago when you made your concession speech. And I would like to just say that your concession speech and the manner in which you made that concession speech was a powerful message about democracy. And the fact that I, as an Arab, can still remember that 2 years on is testament to how powerful it was. Please.
Well, thank you very much. And if I could make a special request, and I hope it would be honored, maybe we could serve the food while I am speaking. Do you think our folks could, as riveting as my comments will be, if we could maybe alert the culinary force that we could go ahead and serve here. May I say thank you, Director General and Nancy, for your very moving remarks. As you know, there's a famous movie actress named Zsa Zsa Gabor who was married, I think, 7 or 8 times. And I feel a bit like Zsa Zsa Gabor's 5th husband, who on her wedding night said, I know what I'm supposed to say, I just don't know how to make it interesting after the comments that were made by our speaker and wide. So I haven't seen any movement yet from the kitchen. Shall I stop speaking until? May I say thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight, and I will try to make my comments brief because there's so much to say, and there's so much going on, and there is so much that Al Jazeera has played a key and leading role. As Nancy Pelosi just pointed out, who, by the way, I have been friends with now for more than 30 years and admired and respected her leadership, and she has always conducted her leadership in a manner which all of us are proud. May I say that there's so much happening, there's so much going on, there's so much change in the world. People have compared this seismic events, the Arab Spring, which I think it may not be adequately named, because I think this spring may affect other countries outside of the Arab world. I think that it's very clear, as Nancy mentioned, the Chinese are much more uneasy than they were a few months ago. I think my friend Vladimir Putin is sitting much less comfortably in his position of perpetuity in governing Russia. So, and it's an amazing and remarkable and exhilarating. It's so exciting. It's so exciting for me to have gone to Tahrir Square and met these young people. It has been so fascinating to meet these young people in the opposition. The young man I had dinner with, who was one of the leaders of the Egyptian revolution, he pulled out his BlackBerry and said, I can get 200,000 people in the square in 3 hours. And he wasn't kidding. The young woman activist in Tunis that I met that said, you know, Senator McCain, it's not the first election that we worry about, it's the second. And that's what I want to talk just a little bit about, because all this excitement and exuberance has to be turned into jobs and economy and progress in these countries. If it isn't, then you are going to see these countries go in very divergent paths, none of which can be good for the service and sacrifice that has already been made. I'm very proud of the role that Al Jazeera has played. When that young man who was humiliated by the police in front of his friends and contemporaries and family in Tunisia that decided to burn himself to death, that would have been confined in earlier years to a single isolated incident. And it was Al Jazeera. It was Al Jazeera that spread that story time and time again, so that it penetrated the conscience of not only the people of Libya, of Tunisia, but countries all over the Arab world. So I congratulate you. I congratulate you And I mourn for those who have sacrificed in the service of providing the information, which is knowledge, which is power. And I'd like to tell you that that'll be the end of it, but it won't, because we're a long way from the end of the line here. And by the way, the next time you have one of these talking heads on Al Jazeera, I'm guilty of that on occasion myself, ask them when they prognosticate and tell you exactly what's going to happen in the future, did they predict what just happened? I don't think so. By the way, I'm proud to be maybe the first United States Senator to visit the headquarters and give interviews, and not a bad place you got going there. Not bad, not bad. And so everywhere I go in these countries, there's hope and there's optimism, and there's a belief that we and they have changed the world, and they indeed have. The world will never be the same again. And it's been at great cost and great sacrifice by young men and women who have risen up and are fighting and dying as we speak in Libya, in Syria, and other countries around the world, because freedom is not cheap. Many of you have been to Tunisia. I was in this famous old cafe in Tunis that's been there about 500 years, and everybody's either drinking tea or sucking on one of those water pipes, something I've never been able to understand. But and as we were walking out, it's a beautiful place. I'm sure many of you know the place I'm talking about. I was walking out, there's a group of young people, and the guy said, "Hi, Senator McCain, nice to see you." And I said, "Thank you." And I said, "Congratulations on democracy." And he said, "Yes, if we can keep it." And you know, back at the end of our Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention, and a woman said, "What have you got for us?" And he said, "A republic, madam, if we can keep it." So things do happen over and over again, but this part of the world, it's been a long, long time. I want to just say, though, that my major concern about what is happening and what can happen is directly related to the ability to satisfy the hopes and dreams and aspirations of the people that made this revolution possible. And it's generally the young people. And we are going to have to, all of us, from every nation, but again, led by the United States as well as others, do everything we can to create an economic climate so that people have the opportunity to live better lives than the one that they have lived. And the consequences of failure, I think, will be profound. We are seeing a nexus, if I could just finally say, of the social networking and Al Jazeera and other sources of information. The social networking obviously made it possible. 1.7 million people follow me on Twitter, and I am very grateful. And I'd like to just tell you a very brief story. I say and tweet profound statements within 140 characters. As many of you know, the most famous, probably, show and most watched by young people show on television is a show called Jersey Shore. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but there's a young woman who is one of the stars whose name is Snooki. And Snooki obviously avails herself of tanning facilities because she has a very deep tan at all times. And when the passage of the health care reform bill, I won't call it Obamacare, Nancy, at the passage of the health care reform bill, part of it was a tax on tanning beds. So Snooki tweeted, she said, "I am outraged that President Obama would raise taxes on tanning beds. Senator McCain would never do that because he's so pale." So I tweeted back, "You're right, Snooki. I would never raise taxes on tanning beds. It's the situation." That's one of the characters in Jersey Shore. So What tweet got the award for the best tweet of the year? Not my profound statement about disarmament with Russia and the START Treaty, not my profound observations as the workings of the Congress, the United States Senate, but the tweets that I exchanged with Snooki. So I hope you understand and appreciate that this means of communication is also sometimes got dangerous aspects associated with it too, misinformation, things that are very injurious to people, and we have to obviously try to see that some self-discipline discipline is exercised. I look at a lot of the tweets that come back to me. A large number of them call for my early demise, usually in a painful manner. But so far, I've fooled most of them. So I want to say that we live in a new era. What Al Jazeera has done is achieve something that all of us, I think, want to achieve as we grow, particularly as we grow older. And that is to make a contribution that will last and be brought to future generations that lie ahead of us. And I want to assure you that these young people who were able to watch Al Jazeera and be inspired by the example of others is a remarkable achievement. When I was in Benghazi a couple of weeks ago, as you know, I met with the Transitional National Council, one man who's their finance minister, as many of you know, was a professor at the University of Washington in Seattle. I sat at lunch with him on one side. On the other side sat a gentleman, a man who'd spent 31 years in Gaddafi's prisons. And there was women activists there who had fought against Gaddafi in the courts. So this Transition National Council is made up of people of Libya who have joined together with one purpose, and that is to bring democracy and freedom to the people who have been oppressed for 42 years by one of the more brutal dictators in the world. At the end of my visit, I went over to the hospital in Benghazi. A ship had just come from Misrata, a 21-hour trip, and the wounded from Misrata were in this ward in the hospital. And I went over there and I was greeted by several doctors. One was British trained, two were Polish trained, others obviously very capable individuals. And we went into this ward where all these young men were lying wounded, most of them dying. And I went to one bed and a young man, his face literally burned off, said, "Thank you for your support, Senator McCain." Well, you know, when things like that happen, it puts into perspective how little we really actually have done in the cause of democracy and freedom. So I urge you to redouble your efforts. I urge you to understand that already employees and people who have worked to bring information and knowledge in the service of Al Jazeera have made the ultimate sacrifice. So in their memory and on their behalf, I say thank you and God bless.